Haverim, what an opportunity. What an opportunity to be able to reach out to you. Thank you for your pokes. Thank you for your comments and messages. And it's a blessing to be able to reach out to you from here, nestled in the Shenandoah Valley, the center of the Carbon region in eastern Pennsylvania, surrounded by the hills and the mountains here in Pennsylvania, accompanied by the animals here in the wilderness, the wolves and the bears and the deers, here sitting under the canopy of Hashemayim, of Hashem, surrounded by the trees and the things growing all around us, the hands of Hashem here in the wilderness. I had some interesting comments and thought I'd go on to the internet again and reach out to you about these things. And you had some interesting questions that I'd like to deal with. Thank you for your comments about Genesis. People don't usually think of Genesis in terms of atonement, but in Genesis you have here Hashem appearing, and for the first time he has two babies. He births two children, and of course they're immediately stolen from him. Adam and Eve, Adam Arishon. And instead of shechting the children, he himself, instead of destroying the children because they made a mistake, he goes into captivity. He becomes hidden, just like Azazel, right? Azazel was taken into the wilderness, up into a high place. He's thrown off the cliff. The he-goat, the atonement. And here Hashem, instead of punishing the children, instead of shechting them, right? He cuts himself off. He circumcises himself. He becomes hidden. Becomes the father of atonement. Decides to atone for his children himself. And this is just Genesis. Throughout the entire Torah, the father of atonement appears, and all the Nevi'im and all the Mashiachs, all they're doing is trying to express this atonement. The Mishkan, the Hamikdash, the Korbanot. How Hashem has decided to take upon himself the punishment that his children deserved. Right? And so atonement begins in Bereshith and continues throughout the entire Torah. I know I last time I spoke about anti-Semitism in the Christian church, and I know I was going to ruffle a few feathers with that comment. That's okay. I like to ruffle a few feathers, but anti-Semitism is best described in the Christian church in the form of replacement theology. The idea that God abandoned the Jewish people and replaced them with the Christian people. This doctrine was born in the 2nd and 3rd century in the bosom of Constantine, and this is what Christians believe today. I mean, Constantine wrote, "Let us have nothing to do with the detestable Jewish crowd." That was Constantine back in the 3rd century, and replacement theology is taught in most churches today. Even though Paul directly in Romans talks about that, has God abandoned his people? God forbid. I'm from Benjamin. I'm a Pharisee, and he goes on. He directly attacks that doctrine, but most Christians, most churches believe that today. So that's how anti-Semitism is propagated most of the time. And then there's good old anti-Semitism too. I mean, for a while I I drove on a tractor trailer, and I made friends with the elder of the church. And while we were driving the tractor trailer, we spoke about the Mishkan. He was flabbergasted. He loved the information that I was given to him. And one day he said to me, "Listen, would you mind coming over and informally speaking to a group of us about the Mishkan? About the Torah and your ideas of atonement and stuff." I said, "That's interesting." The church didn't have any statues in it. They didn't have pictures and stuff. So I said, "Oh, okay." And he says, "You can keep the offering. You can make some money for your ministry." I said, "Oh, that's even more wonderful." So I put on my sneakers and I went over and I taught. They loved the first class of the Mishkan. Yeah, I taught 3 classes. But after the 3rd class, they didn't invite me back. So I reached out to my friend. I says, "Hey, what happened? You didn't invite me back." And he said, "Oh, well, the director, he said you were Jewish." So, I didn't get invited back, but I mean, the congregation was great, but the girl had an issue. I mean, I wore my tzitzis on the inside. I didn't wear any head covering or nothing, but I didn't advertise, But she had an issue. I didn't shake the hands of the girls, and she figured it out, that he's Jewish. But and I said to him, "But doesn't Paul say it is better for a man not to touch a woman?" And he was speechless. And that's what Christians do. When you tell them something that's real, something a real doctrine, they become speechless. Instead of deciding, "Oh, gee, maybe he's saying the truth. Maybe I ought to obey what he's saying or receive correction." No, they become speechless. Then the next day, they forget all about what you talked to them about. But anyway, so there's some good old anti-Semitism too among the churches. I mean, most of the people don't realize it, because they have their own oral Torah passed on to them. But so much for replacement theology. I had an interesting email about a girl who had a dream, and it was a pretty dream. But all I got to tell you is, I mean, a lot of the dreams arise just from the human psychology. I mean, your diet can affect the way that you dream, especially if you eat late. So I'm kind of like skeptical about dreams. The important thing, if you have a dream, is it a constructive dream, or is it just a dream that you have like one time I had a dream that the neighbor in front of me here, he came over to my house with a giant pear. The pear was identical to the shape of his belly. He has a big giant belly. So the pear was huge. So he gave me the pear, and I looked at the pear, and the pear had a hole in it. And inside the hole, I saw a centipede wrapping around the center of the pear. That was the dream that I had. I woke up and I said, "Oh my goodness, what a bad dream." But I paid no attention to the dream. About 2.5 weeks later, I run into, he says, "Oh, I just came out of the hospital. I had a terrible gastroenteritis." No, I messed up. If I would have crossed the street when I had the dream, spoken to him, maybe I would have given him a nice little tea and helped him out. But I didn't pay attention, and I mean, we got to be skeptical about dreams, but not too skeptical. So that's an example of a dream that had a constructive dream that could have helped somebody. So that type of a dream, that's a useful dream, if you have a dream about it, But just any dreams and stuff, I don't pay much attention to them. I mean, they have some psychological value to them. If I could analyze you and talk to you, I use good old-fashioned psychology and stuff to analyze some of the dreams. I could tell you the dream might have been from God or not, but more details you can't really tell. So I had some comments about the caliphate, about establishing a Muslim empire. Listen, if Muslims were exercising the type of Islam that was exercised over at Al-Andalus, we could have a caliphate again. And Al-Andalus The Islam that prospered there was a wonderful, tolerant Islam. You had Christians, you had Jews, uh, living together, studying the Bible together. So you had that type. Under that type of a caliphate, Israel the Jewish people would be allowed to live in their own lands and defend themselves under the caliphate. This is the type of Islam that will work, but it's not working. I mean, look at Egypt. You were free. You were freed for a while, right? Did you embrace your Christian brothers? Did you establish a just society? No. You tried to establish your own power. You lost the opportunity, right? And this is what happens when you dilly dally. Now about the genealogies and stuff. Genealogy, I mean, doesn't mean anything, and it can mean a lot. I mean, genealogy doesn't mean a lot. I mean, I'm a history buff, so I'm interested in genealogy. But again, it could be something constructive. Like if I could put my genealogy, I could take out the garbage at the temple, or participate in the temple services. I descend from the children of Yehezkel, the children of Ezekiel. So if I could prove that, I could participate in the temple services and stuff. So that's an example of a constructed genealogy. But as far as genealogy is concerned, who cares if you're Jewish or not? You could be a Torah activist. See, Judaism was never about race and nationality. Judaism was a movement by Gentiles about the Torah. Abraham was a Gentile. Recently, that's why I don't use the term Jewish a lot, because it's being misinterpreted as like the Cubans, the Argentinians, and the Jews. Judaism was never about race. You had Persian Jews, you had Ethiopian Jews. It was never about race. It was always about the Torah. So, genealogy is interesting. I mean, there's interesting things in genealogy. And that you could study. For example, I didn't know I had a twin brother that was killed one time. He was struck by a behemoth, by a bull. I happen to be fascinated by bulls, by behemoth. And he was struck by a bull. He was killed. I happen to have a birthmark exactly where he was struck by the animal. I mean, history can be interesting, but you don't have to take it that serious. But so, what's going on in the world is exactly what happened at Sinai. Right? God wanted to free the Jews from Egypt. And it's traumatic, but God doesn't want it to be traumatic. I mean, what happened in Egypt didn't have to be a traumatic event. When Moses came down and he told Pharaoh, free my people, we're going to go out in the wilderness and worship Hashem. Pharaoh could have said, oh, how wonderful, can we join you? Can I join you? Can we worship Hashem? Can we receive the Torah too? It didn't have to be a traumatic experience. It became a traumatic experience because the Egyptians, Pharaoh became negative, and there was a war. God declared war on Egypt, and that's what's happening now. People are resisting. They don't see that Hashem is punishing the land. They say, oh, well, it's climate change. Yeah, it's climate change, but why is it happening? It's happening because of the wickedness of the land. And so we have to go through this whole traumatic experience of the earth being shaken and attacked and stuff like that. And you're going to get shaken at that. You're going to get cursed, especially America. Because Hashem gave you blessings. Your fathers made promises to establish a government, a country under God. And you've broken that promise. So Hashem is now you're going to suffer, He's going to withdraw his protective hand. He's had his protective hand over you. Now you're going to suffer just like all the other nations. You get struck just like all the other nations. And you're going to suffer because of it. So, you people are trying to hijack this country, say that this country is great because of your work. Yeah, but Hashem's hands were protecting you while you developed this country. to you, secular people who think you're going to do what you judges and politicians, you lawyers who think you're going to take this country and you're going to be visited. You're going to be visited with destruction and mayhem. Okay, so enough of that. So thank you for your comments. It's been very interesting to receive some of these comments and give me a chance to respond to you in this way. And we'll continue to be in touch. And with the healing thing, listen, I had some comments about healing. You can heal. Everyone can heal. I mean, if you prick your finger like today, tomorrow you'll be healed. You have a natural ability to heal. I mean, I've been healing people since I was like 15 years old, but that's because I became aware of it. You heal naturally too. You're able to heal. And you just have to become aware of it and see it. See somebody do it, then you'll be able to do it yourself. But so, the closer you draw closer to Hashem, the more aware you're going to become of your ability to heal. And I mean, some people resist healing too. I mean, there's a lady here in this town. She's like 85 years old. A few years ago, I was speaking with her, and she told me, "Oh, the doctors say they're gonna cut my husband's legs off." I said, "What?" And his legs were like had inflamed to this, like looked like elephant legs. So she said, "Well, the doctors are gonna cut his legs off," and I said, "Do you mind if I meet your husband in your home, pour a little oil on his legs, And she said, "Yeah, sure, how wonderful." So I came over to the house with a little oil, and I had put a few herbs in the oil and smelling herbs, and so I poured the oil on his legs. I say a bracha over his legs and massaged his legs a little, and he was a white man, but his legs were as black as a black man's legs, and they were like huge. They were going to cut his legs off. He had dead legs. But I massaged the oil into his legs, and 60 days later, his legs he recovered. They didn't cut his legs off. He had his legs on for another 20 years before he died. So she's very appreciative. I mean, when I see her now, she reminds me, what you did for my husband, she says. And but I had to go back and do it a few times. I had to pour oil because people hold on to their sickness. Being sick is like a pillow. When people are sick. Another thing, why do you want to get healed? Why should Hashem heal you? You're better off sick sometimes because you pray more, you call upon Him more. Sometimes He likes you sick, but I mean, if you want to get well to do something for Hashem, that's different. You have to convince the Shekinah, heal this person, I was able to convince the Shekinah and he was healed, but sometimes you're better off sick. Unless you want to get better to do something for Hashem, then He's got a good reason to make you better. He doesn't want you to be sick. But sometimes you're better off sick. But give Him a good reason why you want to heal the person, and then just heal the person. Say the bracha and the person is healed. So you do have a natural ability to heal, but you have to heal yourself first, because there's certain sicknesses. Not all sicknesses are physical, they're spiritual sicknesses. And the way you heal is by keeping the mitzvah. When you keep the Torah, that's how things happen. You see, you don't try to be spiritual. You don't try. Being spiritual is a consequence of keeping the mitzvahs. Somebody said a comment about how I talk and teach and stuff. I always teach like there's two children sitting in front of me, a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old. I always try to simplify what I'm saying. I mean, you're not going to gain anything by me going into quantum mechanics and talking about metaphysics and stuff like that. It may be interesting, but for me to practice, for you to practically be instructed, you have to listen to things simply. Just like I'm speaking to a child. That's how I try to speak. I don't try to speak like a lawyer. I don't try to speak like a scholar. I gain nothing That's a phase. That's filled with pride and foolishness, and it gains you nothing. Believe me. Practical information is passed on simply through simple, like you're talking to a 7-year-old, a 13-year-old, and that's how I try to speak. But so, thank you for your clips. If you want any clarification on anything that I said, email me, let me know, and I'll come back online and continue speaking to you. So Hashem be with you, bless you families, and thank you for your attention.